week we have how to clean water. Here's a tip. Use water. No, how to clean the water by Robert Dalby. Is Robert here today? No? Okay. Water is the cute and wonderful animal who gives us health, life, fun, and cleaning. Its versatility is amazing. It cleans almost everything. That's the reason why there are many kinds of contaminants in water. Pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, iron, hardness, bacteria, virus, algae, sediments, color, odor, etc. But if the water is for cleaning, how can I clean the water? So come and discover the process and equipment to clean the precious water. And Robert de Alba is a master water specialist by the Water Quality Association and has worked for 22 years treating water. Now, for this week's presentation, we have Rex Gale, Don't Trust Your Gut, How to Make Better Decisions in Life. We often hear trust our gut. Quite often people make gut decisions that they ultimately regret. What happened? Why did their gut fail? So this talk will focus on the Nobel Prize winning concepts around decision making and provide a blueprint for helping people understand why and when the gut can be dangerous in decision making, when to trust it, and how to understand the difference. Please give a warm welcome to Rex Gale.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
It's always the first question. I'm sure a lot of you out there are saying, I trust my gut. My gut helps me all the time, right? Who trusts their gut when they make decisions?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes, okay. So all of you now are going to say, well, you're wrong because I trust my gut and I always make the right decision. But sometimes you don't make the right decision, right? Who's made a bad decision recently? You know, now we make good decisions too. Marrying your spouse, marrying your partner. We make really bad decisions too. Marrying your ex-spouse, your ex-partner. It's just interesting. Sometimes our decisions, depending on where you are at a certain place and time. So I really want to clarify one thing here, that 80% of the time, sometimes even more, when you trust your gut is telling you the right thing to do. It's telling you the right thing to do. But that 20%, sometimes when that decision is really important, it might not be the right thing to do. Before these 2 Nobel Prizes were won in economics about decision science, cognitive biases, and we'll get to that in a minute. The world thought that we made rational decisions, right? Things that are best for us personally. I've got all this information, and I'm going to make a decision, what they used to call, at the end of the day, rational decision making. I'm going to make a decision, and it's going to be best for me. Sometimes you wonder, if you don't remember, this is Anthony Weiner, and he made some decisions that really were probably not in his best interest for a lot of people around him too. So what gets in the way? What are we doing here? I think the first thing I want to talk about is our eyesight is the best developed of all of our senses. Yet, let me ask you a question. Is that length of table longer than that one? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Some of us think they're exactly the same size. And if you had a ruler and came up here, you would see that they're exactly the same size. When I put the slide together, I put that in there, I copied it, I pasted it, I turned it, exactly the same size. Now let me ask you again, which of these middle circles is bigger? The one on the left, right? Anybody can see that it's the one on the left, but it's not. They're both the same size. Our mind plays tricks on us because we really need to understand, so what's going on around it? So our mind's playing tricks on us all the time. Sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. So let's talk about when all this changed. All this changed about 50 years ago. Nobel Prize winner, a guy by the name of Herbert Simon. in 1978, he came up with this theory about how people make decisions. And at the end of the day, it was really only three things. He said, when we are forced to make a decision, when a decision confronts us, we think about, how much information do I have? Do I have all the information that I need to make a decision? Now, if you're in business and you need to make a decision about the direction of your company, there's always more information coming in, right? Tomorrow there's going to be more information than we had today. So you never have all of the information that you need in front of you. There's always going to be more coming in. And that creates problems with the mind. The other big issue is time. We never have enough time to make a decision. There's always, we can wait. Let's put it off till tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. We always have an issue with time. And that's why sometimes we put decisions off, right? We just want to wait. We want more of that information to come. And the third thing, which was probably the most impactful, is our mind does not have the ability to manage more than 2 or 3 things at one time. The cognitive function of the mind, if you ever walk into a shoe store and there's 1,000 pair of shoes up there, which ones you're going to get? Now, if there's 4 or 5, it makes it much easier to make a decision. But this was the basis for the first Nobel Prize winner, and it was really around this whole thing of bounded rationality, that our mind lives, and we live in a world that's bound with specific information, specific time frames, and then the cognitive functions that's going on in our mind. So this was the first one, 3 things: information, time, cognitive function. The second Nobel Prize was delivered in 2002 to a gentleman by the name of Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman also had a cohort in the work that he did, Amos Tversky. Amos would have also received this prize, but Amos unfortunately passed away before this prize was issued. But Daniel Kahneman and Amos spent literally years at Stanford, MIT, thinking about how people think, thinking about how we make decisions. And the important thing about their work, which they labeled prospect theory, was that we inherently have certain what they called cognitive biases, heuristics. Heuristics is another name for a bias. Something's going on in my life, and whenever I have a decision to make, something just literally snaps. So what are these cognitive biases that are out there? This is not all of them. I mean, if you go and Google cognitive biases, heuristics biases, you're going to get a list of 15, 16, 17, and this research continues to go on, and every year someone comes up, here's another one the 3D bias. If you look at a picture, the person's the same size, but because they've drawn the scale like a disappearing road, they look like they're different sizes. Anchoring, availability, confirmation, framing, and social bias. These are the 5 I want to spend a little bit of time on. Anchoring is the first piece of information that you get, right? Has anybody been to the Wednesday market, the Tea and Geese?
Yep.
I was there last week, and I wanted to buy some blueberries. So I went up to a blueberry stand, and I said, how much are your blueberries? And she said, 140 pesos. That's what I thought. 140 pesos. It's like, what's going on here? But this is the example of what I'm talking about. She put a number out there that I automatically reacted to. Now, I didn't think about, okay, 140 pesos. Is it growing season? You know, maybe they're more expensive because it's not growing season and they have additional shipping costs coming in, and I didn't think that at all. I'm going somewhere else. So I went down to another table and I said, how much are your blueberries? And she said, 100 pesos. And I said, I'll take 2 of them. So this whole idea of anchoring, has anybody sold a house recently? You put a number out there, right? And people are going to react to it. Either that's too expensive or it's not. So this whole concept of anchoring, and it's going to lead into a lot of other things, is something that we all do subconsciously. The impact of the availability of information. Is anybody a Shark Week fan out there on the History Channel? A couple of you? Have you read articles recently about shark attacks? People killed by sharks? That's this whole idea of availability. Now, what if I told you that more people are killed by champagne corks than sharks? That is true. Twice as many people are killed every year by champagne corks than by sharks. On average, about 6 people a year die from a shark attack. Now, there are a lot that survive, but only about 6 people, depending on what the year is, die from a shark attack. Twice as many, about 12 people die every year from a champagne cork. Typically, it happens at weddings. Because when a champagne cork leaves a bottle, it's going at about 50 to 60 miles an hour. And if it hits you in the head, it's going to cause some significant damage. So this whole idea, and this is where the media plays a big role in this. Because you're going to read all these articles about whatever the issue might be, shark attacks, lightning. Somebody else was telling me that more people are killed by coconuts falling on their head than by shark attacks. I did some research into that statistic because I wanted to make sure, because the number they said, more than 150 people a year are killed by coconuts falling on their head. And I did sort of trace that back. I'm not sure that there was ever any research that totally said that that is true, but I would guess it probably more than 6 a year. So again, it's just the availability of information that we have before us. Confirmation bias. Ignore new information that contradicts anything that we know, right? And we seek information that supports our beliefs. And the best example of this is what? MSNBC and Fox. It's politics, right? If you're a Democrat, you're going to think one way. If you're a Republican, you're going to think the other way. If you're an independent, you don't know what to think. But this is one of those things, I mean, just think about, if I say I voted for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, when I said Hillary Clinton, a lot of you had that instantaneous thought. When I said Donald Trump, the same thing. So we need to understand that there are these biases all around that are really impacting what we're doing when we make a decision. Okay, let's say you have to have an operation. And the doctor comes in and says, shouldn't be an issue, 90% chance of survival. What do you think?
10% they get you.
Exactly. Now, what if that same doctor comes in and says, you need to have this procedure, and there's a 10% chance of death? The human mind reacts very differently depending on how something is framed, right? So sort of going back to that picture of the 2 circles and the tables. Exactly the same size, but how those were framed can have a huge impact. Marketers get this. Marketers, they know everything about when marketers will send people into stores with this contraption on their head. It looks like a sieve. It's got all these probes in it, and they literally are monitoring all of their brain function and brain activity as they're looking at things. And they can tell that if they look at something that's red, they look at something that's blue, look at something that's yellow, how it's monitoring, which gets into product packaging, the images you see on products, everything like that. This whole issue of framing, we really need to sort of understand that there are these human biases out there, these cognitive biases that are impacting the way we think, the way we make decisions. Which movie are you going to go see, this one or this one? Again, social bias, right? We all have friends. We have friends typically because they're like us. And for most of us out here, if you've never seen this show, maybe you've seen this one. This one's Golden Girls. They were the original Friends, I think, to some extent. But social bias is extremely forceful. And when you think about going out with friends, the things that they're doing, we tend to surround ourselves with people like ourselves, right? And whatever that may be, it may be interests, whatever that may be, but we're very influenced by our friends, and our friends are very influenced by us. So there are all these things that are at play out here. Daniel Kahneman wrote this book. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And there's been a lot of other research around the way people make decisions, why smart executives fail, and I'll talk about one or two of those as well. But in this book, he outlined a bunch of these different cognitive biases. And at the end of the day, he basically said, this is how we think. We really don't. And we really don't think. And let me share his reasoning and his rationale for why that is. I have another perspective on this that I'll share, but basically he says, think about, when we make a decision, think about two systems, system one and system two. Okay? That's his very simplistic view of what's going on here. So system one is the automatic system. So when I say, who wants to get an ice cream? Nobody? Who wants to go get a colonoscopy? You made a split-second decision based on simply what I said. And this is the automatic system is what causes us to jump to conclusions. It is a shortcut for our thinking. System two is sort of what he calls to our reflective system. System two means I need to think about this a little bit more. Before I make this decision, I need to think about something. The problem with thinking is that thinking takes effort, doesn't it? Thinking takes time, thinking takes effort. So what does that really look like? What Mr. Kahneman said is any decision that we make is driven by our past experiences, the emotion that we attach to them, and we make that automatic decision. I've got a decision to make. Do I want to go get ice cream? Yeah, I love ice cream. It makes me happy. Let's go. I need to have a colonoscopy. How many of you have had to have one and you put it off? I have. Past experience, maybe not as pleasant. The emotion, you may not even remember it, but again, it's sort of like it's some of these things that we tend to push off in the past. This is the instantaneous gut. Think about this as your gut. This is your gut decision. My past experience, if there are any, the emotions I attach to it, you make a decision. But wait, there's more. Sometimes something else gets in the way, and this is the most powerful force on earth, and it's inertia. Now, you got up this morning and you had to make a decision. Are you going to come to Open Circle? Right? And you did. People sort of woke up this morning and said, looks like it might rain. Set the alarm clock, put on snooze. Every day you wake up, we make thousands of decisions that we don't even know that we're making. So that's one thing I really want you to remember. We are making thousands of decisions instantaneously. And we have something called inertia that is keeping us from doing things. What I love about this community is people are getting out and doing things. And it's not like this all, in all places, as you probably have even seen, experienced. But let's look at health and exercise. Has anybody ever bought a gym membership and not used it? 60% of gym memberships are never used.
Wow.
I mean, think about that. 60% are never used. A lot of money that's going out. Why are they not used? Because of inertia. Because we have to make an effort to go to the gym. 40% of us are obese. This is really a U.S. statistic, but I have a friend that used to say, communication. We know what we need to do. We know what we need to do to be happy, to be thin, and to be rich, right? So we all should be happy, thin, and rich. But we're human. And so we don't do a lot of the things that we really know that we should be doing. This is very interesting. This is a graph of organ donation percentages. How many of you believe in organ donation? How many of you are organ donors? It's a very intelligent group. You guys think a lot. All right, so on the left here, these are organ donation rates, and this is mostly European countries, okay? And the U.S. and Canada are going to be over here as well. Denmark has a 4.25% donation. People that actually have signed up to donate their organs. Now, why is it that these countries are so different from these countries, where the lowest rate is 85.9%? Somebody was saying, well, it's the culture. The cultures are different, right? Well, this is Denmark, and this is Sweden. Pretty similar cultures. Does anybody know what's going on here?
They have to opt out. Oh, they have to opt out.
These countries have what they call opt-in or explicit consent. Getting back to inertia, you have to check a box. That's all you have to do. 90% of people in the US and Canada believe in organ donation and say that they want to be organ donors. And about half of those do not make an effort to check a box. And that's why these rates are so low. You have to opt in. So here's a trick. These countries have something, so check the box if you want to donate, okay? These are opt-out, what they call presumed consent. So if you live in any of these countries, Austria, Belgium, France, Hungary, Poland, Portugal, Sweden, you are automatically organ donors. Now, if you do not want to be an organ donor, you can check the box and you can opt out. But here's a problem. People don't check the box and they don't donate, right? People don't check the box and they donate. So by doing nothing, the question that's being asked here is, if you do nothing, you can make it that you're going to be a donation, that you'll donate or not. So, and this is the power of sort of life and death when it comes to inertia. In these countries, there are, I know in the United States, there are probably 112,000 people that die because they can't get an organ donated. In most of European these European countries, there's no line. Wow. In Canada's about a tenth the size of the United States, and I think the donation, I think the people that die is about half of that, so it's still significant. But this is something that we need to understand, the inertia that takes place. What about financial security? Okay, this is from the United States. People participate in 401k plans, okay? And same thing, you have to sign up to participate. And so, and this is where people are given free money, right? If you put in 3%, your employer is going to put in 3%. That's 100% return on your money. Yet, they have to enroll. And if they don't enroll, they don't get that free money. So finally, employers started to figure out, well, wait a minute, we need to do more to protect the interests of our employees, encourage them to save, and give them more money. So this whole thing called automatic enrollment started to happen about 30 years ago. But still, not all companies have automatic enrollment. What did we just learn? You have to opt in. Check the box if you want to join. Opt out, check the box if you don't want to join. People who don't check the box join. People who don't check the box don't join. So the question that is put in front of people is totally focused on the outcome that they're looking for. People do nothing, and you can either be in the plan or out of the plan. So that's a design concept. When you design something, when you're looking to get people to enroll or not enroll, it's absolutely critical that you think about what you're going to be encouraging people to do, because you're encouraging people to do something by assuming that they are not going to do anything. Does that surprise people? No? All right, so a couple examples of some really smart people that made some really bad decisions. And we'll go through sort of each of these. This is a guy by the name of Ron Johnson. He basically invented the Apple Store. So he was a marketing guy at Apple. He created the Genius Bar, the Apple Store, the whole shebang. And they hired him as the CEO of JCPenney Company. As my friend John Henry likes to say, what could go wrong? So what could go wrong? Any ideas? What? Yell it out.
Did they want to go out of business?
They did. So what can go wrong? What's going on here? So think about past experience, the emotion we attach to it, automatic decision. So over the course of 16 months, basically what Ron Johnson said is, I know what to do here. I'm going to make JCPenney another Apple. We're not going to have sales. We didn't have sales at Apple. Now, who do you think shops at JCPenney?
People who want sales.
Probably not the same demographic that shops at the Apple Store. People that like sales. And they also, we're not going to do coupons anymore either. No coupons, So what happened is, over the course of that, remember, this is 16 months. He took JCPenney stock from $31 down to $15, 51% drop. Today, what do you think the stock's at?
I don't know.
Yes,
$4.
$4. I wish it was 18 cents.
Oh,
And again, this is a very smart guy, right? Assuming that, but what he was doing is he was making a decision based on his past experiences. Some of you may know this guy, Bob Nardelli. He was one of the heirs to Jack Welch at GE. He goes from GE. He doesn't get the top job at GE, and one of the GE board members was a board member of Home Depot. 10 minutes after he was let go, he was hired as CEO of Home Depot. Now, again, two very different companies again. GE was all about Six Sigma. You're going to be the number one or number two in the market. So he goes to Home Depot and he says, okay, we're going to do what we did at Home Depot. He goes to Home Depot and says, we're going to do what we did at GE. And guess what? They hired people at Home Depot before he got there because they were tradespeople. You ever gotten into a Home Depot?
yeah.
You go into the electronics section. Hey, I need this capacitor. How do I do this? They could tell you how to do it. When he got on board, most of the leadership left. He brought in his own people, and it's the same thing. It's the same sad story. It's not quite as sad, though. Okay, so over that 6-year period, stock went from 39 to 40. So, it did grow. The only problem is their main competitor, Lowe's, they started siphoning off all of their business and went up 230%. Again, he left. The culture came back at Home Depot, and their stock today is worth about $314. So another good example. This is one that I have personal experience with. I was a VP of Corporate Human Resources at Radio Shack when we went through a lot of different transitions. So Claire Bobrowski was our CEO, and she was acting CEO. Everybody loved Claire. She was closing some stores. She was doing the things that she needed to do to make Radio Shack more profitable. Getting decisions on the floor about how the floor layout is, about the average ticket price. When someone comes in the store, can they buy certain things? Getting more accessories out there. Selling gaming systems. We didn't sell gaming systems, but we sold the gaming system accessories. When you buy a gaming system, that's when you buy the accessories. So a lot of different issues. So the board decided to bring in Julian Day. Julian Day was a smart man. If anybody knows who McKinsey Consulting is, probably one of the top business consultants in the world. He was also a private equity and a turnaround guy. So he took Albertsons out of bankruptcy. He went into Sears when they were going bankrupt, engineered the acquisition of Kmart. So he wants to turn Radio Shack around. Basically, he's a private equity guy. He just wants to flip the company, right? So unfortunately, this was 2006, 2007, all the private equity money starts drying up. And he didn't know what to do because he couldn't get someone to buy the business. He was not a merchandiser. He didn't know how to get inventory and how to get the online business going within Radio Shack. And again, 1697, sad song, 85% drop. What do you think it is today? You can find a Radio Shack. They filed for bankruptcy in 2015. So these are really, really, really smart people that are making some really, really bad decisions. So what's going on here? When I think about this past emotion, or the past experiences and the emotion you attach to it, you make these automatic decisions. And this is what I call P-brain thinking. Okay? And think of that. I mean, it's a good thing to remember. Think about the P. Okay? Past emotion, past experience, the emotion you attach to it, automatic decision. These are the decisions we make all the time. These are our gut decisions. Sometimes they are good decisions. Sometimes they are not good decisions. Now, when I went through these examples, I noticed something else. There are some other people out there that are making really good decisions as business people. Does anybody know this guy? Andy Grove was the former CEO of Intel. And back in the 80s, Intel, they were in the memory chip business. They had 60% market share. They were going and blowing. They could do no wrong. Well, then the Japanese started to build memory. And over the course of time, they started to eat into their profits and their margin and their market share. And the Japanese then said, we are going to undercut Intel's prices by 10%. If Intel drops their prices 10%, we're going to go 10% lower. So all of a sudden, Intel's market share is down to like 20, 30%. Andy Grove, in a meeting with Gordon Moore, Andy and Gordon were the two founders of Intel. Gordon Moore was, you've heard of Moore's law, that the capacity of a chip is going to double every 2 years and the price is going to go down. And that has held for like 50 years. Andy turned to Gordon and said, okay, the situation that we're in, I don't know what to do. What do you think we should do? And he said, we need to get out of the memory chip business. And Andy said, well, okay, let's walk out the door, come back in, and do that. That's exactly what they did. They got out of the memory chip business and got into the microprocessor business. Memory, think of memory as, memory is what's in your briefcase, right? And the microprocessor is what's in your head. It's what made the computers run. And back in 1985, the IBM computer, the computer revolution was starting, and all those computers needed some kind of a chip to make sure that they worked. Totally transformed the company in about 1 minute by having this conversation with Gordon Moore. Most people know this guy, okay? Bill Gates. Love him, hate him. In 1995, 10 years after Andy Grove, and Andy and Bill were friends, both in the computer space. Andy and Bill were friends, and Bill Gates used to go away every January. He spent 2 weeks by himself, thinking. Did this every year. He's been doing this probably for 30 years. So he goes away and he's like, what's going on in the world right now? And he had seen this company called Netscape. Anybody remember Netscape? Netscape was probably the most innovative company at the time. Their Netscape Navigator, web search, graphical user interfaces, and he said, we are totally losing market share. He said, I can find more information on the internet now than I can on the Microsoft network. So he wrote this fairly famous memo that said, there is an internet tidal wave coming, and everything we do needs to be focused on how our applications are going to be used on the web. Totally turned that company around in the course of 1 year, when then everything was all about internet. So what's going on here? This is where I think a significant change has taken place. This is system one. Past experience, the emotion we attach to it, and we make an automatic decision. What were Andy and Bill doing? They were reflecting. So this is my P analogy and a pair analogy. Your system one is the P thinking. That's your gut. Your gut is the P thinking. The pair is this element of reflection that's sort of going on out there. And it's really asking one simple question. So at the end of all this, it's asking one simple question. If you have a decision to make, you know that you're going to have a gut decision. You know you're going to have that automatic decision that says, this is what I want to do. But what's different this time? That's what Ron Johnson didn't ask. What's different this time? Well, totally different marketplace, totally different, I'm not selling technology, I'm selling, clothing. So what's different? When I look at this again, I noticed one other thing was different. What's different about this picture?
Oh, wait.
No women. No women. What the heck? What's going on here? So I had that same thought about 2 weeks ago. So I said, what the heck? Is there any research out there that tells us that women are better leaders than men? And so my wife said, yes, they are. And she's right. And she's right. But no, she is right. So I actually found this study from it's from a long time ago. It's from last year, last December. Harvard Business Review, okay? Analysis found that women in business scored higher than men on most key leadership qualities. Women also pull ahead in motivation, bold leadership, and teamwork. Bold leadership. What's different this time? What are we going to be doing in the future? Women executives often prioritize risk-taking. What do we need to do? What did Andy Grove do? Risk-taking. We need to totally transform this company. This approach could create more innovation and opportunity. So I need to put more stories about what women have been doing as we go through this process. Now, I just got a few minutes to close. What I want to do is close with a story. These are my children. They are older now. Ellen and Brian. We went on a family vacation back in 1995. Brian's 7 years old. He never skied before. We went to a place called DeGray Lake in Arkansas. This lake was amazing. 50 feet down, you could see a pebble. It was so clear. It was unbelievable. Brian had never been water skiing. So it's there's a boat, there's a lake. Let's see if he can ski. So actually, Susan, my wife, was in the water with him, trying to, got his skis on, and, I'm in the boat, and I'm telling him what to do, right? I'm his father. Listen to my instruction. Don't let the boat pull you out of the water. Don't pull yourself out of the water. Let the boat pull you out of the water. Don't lean forward. Don't lean back. It's let the skis and the boat do the job for you. So I tighten the line, and I hit the gas. Up pops Brian, and he's skiing. About 10 seconds later, he fell. So I hit the gas again to go back and pick him up, and I look back, and I didn't see him. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Where is he? And for some reason, I just pulled back on the gas, and the boat stopped, and up he popped. So I finally got back around to Brian, and I'm reaching over, pulling him out of the water, and he's crying hysterically. He's like, whoa. I'm like, Brian, what's the matter? What's wrong? He's like, why did you pull me through the water? And I said, well, Brian, when you fall, you're supposed to let go. And he said, you didn't tell me to let go. And that moment had a huge impact on the rest of my life. How often do we not let go of things? Family situations, past jobs, personal relationships. How often do we hold on to those things that are getting in the way, in this case, of the decisions that we're making? And And very often, my dad, I had cousins I never knew I had, because my dad had an issue with one of his brothers. They never spoke again. Never met him, never knew who he was. You know, he had all of these things in his past. He had all of this emotion tied to his past. And he made all of these decisions about not introducing his family to other family. Letting go is a really, really, really hard thing to do. But if we can let go, I think at the end of the day, there's so much more positivity on the other side of where we are. So I want to spend my last 2 minutes just summarizing where we are and where we've been. Gut decisions, remember. Your gut is going to be an automatic decision. There's a lot of research out there, 2 Nobel Prizes, that basically say, the first, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough information, and we don't have enough cognitive ability to make really complex decisions on the fly. There are other these things that are happening to us, these heuristic biases that are getting in the way. We talked about availability, social bias, all these things are going on too. The good news for all of us is that those gut decisions, most of the time, are right. Okay, most of the time they're right. What's getting in the way is this whole idea of this harebrained thinking. But we're totally influenced by the past, by the emotion we attach to it, and that's what our gut decision is going to be. Reflection is really where the power in making better decisions lies. Particularly reflection when there's something different this time. What is different? It's just asking a simple question. When you have to make a decision and something's troubling you, this is what you need to do. Because what's troubling you could be that past decision, that automatic decision you want to make. There's something going on here. Just ask this one question. What's different this time? What's going on? And let go. Because a lot of what's happening in this pea brain up there, it's a lot of this baggage that we all carry. It's a lot of not letting go of a past experience that maybe has gotten in our way. It's letting go of that emotion that is so entwined in all of these decisions that we're making that it's getting in the way. And then that automatic decision, what's different this time? And at the end of the day, how can we, as human beings, knowing that we're flawed in a lot of different ways, make better decisions that will improve the way that we live our lives? Thank you. Take questions.
That was great. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Now, we in the past, I've been going around asking people to shout, and we haven't been passing the mic because of the COVID. But if you're comfortable now having the mic, we will now try it. We'll give you the mic, and hopefully I won't be wresting it away from anyone's hands. All right, hold on, Angel.
And I also want to thank him for suggesting that I raise this up a little higher.
You can use what we experience, you and I, in here. Sometimes it's to make a decision on an advice to see the same thing at the same level. Mm-hmm. I was sitting down, there was nobody here. The TV was on the table. And then I saw it's going to be black by the audience. You came in here, you gave me an opportunity, you came and you were hesitating because you were standing up. And then I asked you, please have a seat. And then you made a decision and brought that. Looking the same thing on the same level.
Mm-hmm. And my automatic decision was, people will be able to see it. No? I didn't think.
I have another question here.
Okay.
Yeah, Rex, I'd like to know, can a champagne cork kill a shark?
The champagne cork is going to lose its speed underwater, so it probably cannot.
Excuse me. All right.
That was pretty fascinating. You didn't mention risk-taking until you got into the women, which I found interesting. But what's the relationship between risk-taking and inertia?
So risk-taking is sort of one of the other biases that we had talked about. Like, think about buying a lottery ticket, right? A lot of people buy lottery tickets. They think that there's some risk in doing that, but the reward is going to be so much greater. This whole area of loss aversion is sort of part of the whole, risk aversion, loss aversion. People tend to, we hate to lose, right? Losing money impacts us more than 2 times the pleasure of gain. So that's why if you go to sell your house and someone's not giving you the price that you want, you always think it's going to be more valuable. I'm trying to think of another example, but the whole area of risk is one of these human things that we often don't want to take that risk, and it sort of gets back to the whole inertia environment. We don't know what the future is going to hold. So what we tend to do is we tend to not be risk takers because we don't know what the impact on us is going to be. That's the rational side of us coming out. The rational side is I want to protect myself from loss because I'm going to feel that loss twice as much as any gain that I'm going to have. So that's sort of the number that this research has come out with us. We don't want to take selling stocks. We don't want to sell stocks when they're going down in value, because guess why? Because we're going to lose money. So what tends to happen is we don't sell, and they go down more, they go down more, they go down more. So that the whole area of risk taking, I think, is an area that still is being looked at, because and this research says that women are better at risk taking than men, and it could be because we are just so set in our ways of the way that we do things. Susan, my wife, she's taught me so much about, you really need to think about that. What's different this time? And, we're going to sell our house. Okay, we bought a house, a rental property, right? And then 2007, remember 2007?
Yeah.
We had decided to sell that house and buy another one, but guess what? We found the second one first. Oh, well, let's just buy that house. And I'm sure this house we're trying to sell will sell tomorrow. What do you think happened? As John says, what could go wrong? So we own 2 houses, and so the whole area of risk. I'm not really an expert but it is that the whole concept of sort of loss aversion. We hate to lose money. We hate to lose arguments. But really, at the end of the day, it's the pain of loss impacts humans 2 times the pleasure of gain.
Yeah, we have another question
sense.
over here, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you. Early on in my professional career, I took a management course. I still remember one of the items described was to make a decision, okay? Make a list of all the advantages, the list of all the disadvantages, and based on what you write, it will be clear to you when you look at both lists at the same time how to make a decision. In an issue of the risk, it was also a rational analysis of is it high risk or low risk, but also the impact. So if it's a high risk, high probability, that's one thing. High impact, sorry, and vice versa. All the possible combinations that really help in making a rational decision rather than the P decision that you say. You didn't speak much about that. We can just spend a minute on that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, supposedly that came from Ben Franklin. So Ben Franklin was the original, okay, let's do the advantages, disadvantages. You put a list together, and again, that process is a great process. It's a great process as long as you don't have past experience that's getting in the way of that bottom line decision, and you don't have that emotion that's getting in the way of the, if you can do it totally objectively, that's a great way to make a decision. Has anybody ever done that?
Yes.
And has anybody done that and decided to do something different? That's what's happening. You know, we can be very rational about these decisions that we make, but we just need to understand that there is this other stuff getting in the way, which are it's the past experiences and it's the emotion that could get in the way of that rational decision.
Ooh, a couple more here. Ready, do you wanna-
This is kind of a public confession. But, I knew all about scams and how people would call and say, oh, your granddaughter is in Rome and she had an accident and she needs money right away, or that sort of thing, right? So I was well aware that that's never going to happen to me. And I got a call one time here in Ajijic. It was the brother of a friend of mine, supposedly. And I had only met him once or twice. I didn't know him very well, but I knew his sister a little bit better. And he said, I'm at the airport and having car trouble and, you know, blah, 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 and I need 5,000 pesos right away. And he gave me this account number. So I was thinking, well, she's a friend, and I don't know this man very well, but I'm sure, how would he know about me? Unless, I mean, he had no way to know about me unless he really knew that there was this kind of relationship. So I took $5,000, and my I was actually physically feeling this, there's something wrong. There's something very, very wrong. He had a different voice, first of all.
First, what's different?
And yet I didn't want to let the brother of my friend down if he were in trouble. So despite these really strong feelings that I had, which I had never even had before, I went and I did it, and it was totally a scam. And I also found out that he scammed another woman in the exact same way. Only she ended up marrying the brother at the end. So she got something out of it. I never got my money back.
And what's your phone number? Yeah. Peso. Oh, I feel better now.
I wanted to comment on the two lists. For me, it's not a matter of what I put on the list. It's a matter of when I finish the list, I say, okay, if I made this decision, now I'm in this decision, how do I feel? And if I made this decision, and I'm in this decision right now, how do I feel? And oftentimes I can have a huge plus list and a little bitty negative list. And yet, if I put myself in that plus decision, everything says do this, do this, do this. But I feel terrible. And I'm going to do that. And another part of that is a big part of my personality since I was a child is been there, done that. And lots of times friends are saying, oh, this is perfect for you, and that, you know. But to me, it's been there, done that.
Mm-hmm. And there's one other thought about that is, you know, when you put your list together, the other thing that you need to think about is some of those bullet points or some of those things you put down might have a greater weight than others. So it's not just counting, well, I've got, 8 that says yes and 6 that they say no. If one of those 6 is, well, I get to see my grandkids more often, that may have a greater weighting in that decision than just sort of counting the numbers. And so very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Excellent.